welcome. The SMF standard G10 I'm going to keep. I decided to keep it for the purpose of this video and future videos as a kind of reference point. I think it'll help, because a lot of people do own striders. We can use it to look at and compare it to. Now, I want to say, despite my relationship with Strider, I want you guys to still know that my personal opinions don't affect my recommendations to you guys as to whether or not a Strider SMF is a good knife, and I still say it is. And I'm basically just going to read a little bit off of my website. Now, if you guys see something off, sometimes my website, I say it way back in the day, haven't gone back and checked, but I'm going to start going over it. Just give me a couple of days, I'll make sure some of the stuff is more up to date. This is why I always ask knife makers, check it out, make sure I'm not saying anything wrong. If you guys have a question too about something I say, go ahead and ask me. Like I said, sometimes I just overlook things or haven't gone back and refreshed what it says. But the main thing I would say, when someone buys a Strider, they're looking at two flaws. They're looking at the fit and finish, blade centering, etc., and also then the lockup. Some people think that the way the lock is made, with that what they call a radiused blade tang, that circular style of blade tang. Let's see. You can see how it's not straight across, but kind of cut in a curve, right? That is a design choice, or perhaps even a design flaw. Now, the design choice, well, it works because what it does is there is a slope that prevents the lock bar from obviously sliding inward with hard use. The cons, as another YouTuber said, and I had said before, that it wears out a corner, because you can see just only a corner is touching that radiused lock bevel. The lock bevel being the part of the blade that the lock bar touches. So of course, with that corner wearing, you're only touching that corner of that lock bar, that top right corner of this lock bar down here, will wear out, and eventually, because it'll start going closer towards this sudden curve, you won't be able to how you say, engage or lock against that curve. It'll slide off that curve and move out until it's roughly where it is right now, because this knife is brand new. Now that I heard, and this is just hearsay, but it's from some pretty reliable sources, is not perhaps a design choice on purpose. That is more of a manufacturing process step that Strider uses, based on what I hear, which is why they come out that way. It kind of provides a general overall, hey, 90% of the time this is what we get good results, and it's easy to do, it's time efficient, etc. Because this is something I was noticing on the custom. For example, this custom SMF, it isn't radiused. And so have some of the new Striders, the customs and stuff, or the nicer end ones, have always been like this, a smooth surface. Flat like a Sabenza. More sloped, of course, to prevent it from sliding inward or gripping inward when gripped hard, but still not like that. So that would say that is perhaps something to consider, that people who think that this is perhaps a design choice, but it's also then why the SMF is also better than the PT and SNG models. Because if you understand, on those smaller models, all these components, the curve, the actual lock bar itself, everything gets smaller. So an even smaller corner is touching, and of course will wear quicker and wear out and give out. Especially with, that's the problem with all the company advertising and all that nonsense of just saying, oh, it's hard use. In reality, that title doesn't transfer onto their SNG or PT models, because it's just not gonna, and I'm gonna show that it's just not gonna hold up to that. So if you're looking for the actual hard use and lightweight, which is the other pro about a Strider because of this G10 side, a lightweight, hard use, kind of large, somewhat large tactical folder, and SMF does meet that, and meet that better than the other models that they provide, especially the PT, which you can see on PTs people have them locking up all the way late, and the SNG, of course. Now, in terms of the category of hard use Framelock knives, this is to me one of the best values. It really is. I mean, you could look at a Hinderer. I mean, if you can get a Hinderer for the correct price, then okay. But if it's just not reality right now. So this is a very good affordable option. The price point, when compared to other Framelock knives, is good. But there are other options for hard use folders, such as the cold steels with their triad locks, but those are not made in the USA. The overall versatility, though, of a frame lock is why a lot of people prefer it, though, of course, because of the lower maintenance, less parts, and of course reliability in different environments, those especially that include dirt, not affecting the lockup. For most individuals, though, the general issue for people will be, for example, the finish. Now, in this aspect, sometimes you'll hear correct. There'll be little scuffs and scratches. Like, for example, there's a little scuff there. This is brand new. Maybe there's a little scrape there on that little. And this is all cosmetic, but it does show that, if you think about it, if I imagine, like, well, when they're in their shop and whoever the employees are, maybe they're not wearing gloves, or the tables don't have cloth laid out, perhaps those kind of aspects, and things are banging on each other, and it's just not perhaps one of their manufacturing processes goals or concerns. It's not bad, but definitely, if someone wanted to be very, very careful when assembling something, they could be. Now, the largest flaw will most people be the blade centering and the lockup. Now, blade centering, this thing you see is a little off center, okay? First of all, of course, it's better if it goes for the G10 side. So if you're getting one, preferably if you're just going to lean one direction, lean towards the G10 so it doesn't scrape on the titanium. But the thing is, you see, a strider pivot is a male and female, and the style of pivot relies heavily on the placement of the two parts into these handle scales. You understand, if this top side hole was just a little bit over there, then this whole pivot would be like that, tilted a little bit like that, and it would cause the blade to move that way. So that's very, very crucial. And I would say for what it is, then Strider does a very good job of that, because also then the machining of the hole in the blade, of course, if it's just a little off, will also add to this effect. I would say perhaps if they took into account these concepts, that perhaps, which they probably do, they could try doing it on different sides so that it ultimately balances. And I'm pretty sure that's something they consider and try to do. But the point is, these are all very microscopic things to measure. And normally a knife, though, can have this issue resolved. If you've seen, for example, on those Spiracos with the two males and one female for the pivot, you can tighten one side down, the blade will move that direction. You can center it that way. Another aspect also is when knife makers use stop pins that have screws. You can screw the stop pin down and it'll also center and line the blade. But because Strider uses this integrated thumb stud, basically the only parts controlling the centering are the actual female, male, and the holes where those are positioned, and the hole of the blade tang. There's no other ways to compensate. So blade centering isn't so much a flaw of their craftsmanship or their quality control, and I would never look at that. It's actually more just a design flaw because of the way they chose to create this area. But it has its pros, of course, because there's less parts. It's a female male, so it's less parts also. It's tougher. So okay, so you can kind of get that is not so much poor craftsmanship or poor quality control, more just the limitations of that style of pivot. Next then is lockup. Well, when you get a Strider, I will say this: you want early lockup, okay? Because I said of that radiused lock blade tang, lock bevel blade tang, it's very quickly the corner of this lock bar can wear down, and like I said, when the lock bar starts getting closer towards that sudden drastic curve down, of course that lock bar isn't going to contact or engage that curve, and what's going to happen is when you put negative pressure, it's going to slide out, and it's going to engage only the flat portion, which at that point then it'll be fine, but you might have some up and down movement until it slides out and catches. The issue can be resolved with Strider's warranty, and most likely, of course, you guys know the fix. They'll put that little bigger cap, just like how a normal knife maker would put a bigger stop pin, but you end up with this funny cap on your knife, and that would be that. This design does make sense. It does have its purpose, and it is good. So that's the main thing to consider. Now, last thing, this is a brand new knife. You've been watching this whole time. Like I said, I took it off the sale and decided to keep it. You see that corner is new, lockup is early. Now, people do these spine whack tests, okay? To me, again, if a knife can't handle a spine whack, and a lot of professional knife makers test their knives this way, and I'm very certain Strider themselves have spine whacked their own knives to make sure. But the whole point is these knives have the theme of being hard use. to me, taking a knife and whacking its spine, especially with just hand, just this kind of pressure, me holding it with one hand and hitting it, is not extreme. That is not. Extreme would be, actually stabbing something very hard, or, constantly prying and applying side pressures, which will constantly kind of grind on that lock bar. When you start using it that way, that's more actual daily hard use. But the thing is, like I said, some companies just go off of performance, some company goes off of an advertisement, marketing. The SNG PT don't do so well, but let's see how the SMF does in terms of hard use or that. So here we are, we have engaged it, okay. During the course of this time even, it's starting to kind of move, but you can kind of see where the lockup is, right? Okay, let's just try this, okay. Look at where the lock bar is now. This is a brand new strider. Okay, it's moved in. If you guys just go rewind, you can see it's moved in, not a lot, but definitely 10-15%. And you can see the gap between the blade and the lock bar is not as visible. If we go and unlock it, you can see here, perhaps if my camera can catch it, you can see there is a portion, that corner is already scraped off. You open it up again, and look how late it is. Now, what that means is, just understand something, guys. Hard use and the reality of hard use, reality and advertisement are two different things. Does this mean this folder is no good anymore? No, it's still going to be fine. It's totally smooth to disengage now. Doesn't stick. It's still good, still new. Definitely still solid up and down. Definitely still solid left and right. But, this is what happened to my knife after just one little small session of me using some pressure, some wrist pressure to spine whack it. And this is where we're at. So understand something, that there's a reality and then there's marketing, and at this point this knife is marketed as a hard use folder, and it is. It will, through all my testing, all my videos, I would still recommend it. And despite what you saw here, this is still a good knife. The only thing is, you could understand though that is a design aspect that definitely doesn't hold up to this. So I don't know what people are always saying they've had for years, and they act like they pry every day and stab things and use it heavy use, and the truth is that lock bar, that corner is just a weak point, and it'll wear out very quickly. Doesn't mean the knife isn't good, just means the reality of what this knife is has its limitations, and like I said, you just eventually, as it keeps wearing out, that will move further inward. But being that this is an SMF, this one should last much longer than the other models. But you can imagine if this was the other models and you did this immediately after the very first test, the knife would be damaged. Or at least you would see that this whole component area would be smaller, it would have moved further. So I hope you guys understand the purpose of this vid. It's not to bash on the knife. That is the way it's created, and that is the category it's in. But it's far from invincible. This still takes second to a Hinderer, and you guys know my relationship with Hinderer isn't the best either. But the point is, but this is a very good price point for what you're getting. Just bear in mind exactly how hard use are we talking about. We're not talking daily constant abuse. We're talking one sitting just right here on camera can do that. So bear in mind the limitations of this knife. If I had kept doing this, of course, and especially if this was a later lockup, you would be hitting that slope and there would be up and down lock rock. So that's why I always say get an early one, because that corner is going to wear out and this is going to happen. Basically, spine whack is just like, to me, has a speeding up very quickly in one sitting the process of that knife wearing out. So you can see that is a concern. That's why I always say go for early, because if this started late, if this was at where it is right now, and then that happened, you wouldn't be solid anymore. So That's what my suggestion.